Hello everyone, my name is Johnson Shodeko and I'm posting this as a class assignment in fulfillment of CS 847 for Professor Yuxter at the Colorado Technical University, Colorado Springs. Now today I will be talking about the Zachman's framework, which is a major tool in developing an enterprise architecture. Now what exactly is an enterprise architecture? Mind you, there are several definitions proposed in literature today, but I found one that makes a lot of sense. Now, enterprise architecture is a rigorous description of the structure of an enterprise. Enterprise architecture describes the terminology, the composition of subsystems, and their relationships with the external environment and the guiding principles for the design and evolution of an enterprise. This description is comprehensive, including enterprise goals, business functions, business process roles, organizational structures, business information, software applications, and computer systems. Enterprise architecture has now become a common practice for large IT organizations. Now, the Zachman architecture is regarded in many circles as a framework. However, if you look closely, it does not fit into traditional definition of a framework. According to the American Heritage Dictionary, a framework is defined as a structure for supporting or enclosing something else, especially a skeletal support used as the basis for something being constructed. An external work platform, a scaffold, you may say, a fundamental structure, a set of assumptions, concepts, values, and practices that constitutes a way of viewing reality. Now, how should someone then classify the Zachman's framework? Now, the Zachman framework is actually a taxonomy for organizing architectural artifacts. In other words, things like design documents, specifications, and models that takes into account both who the artifact targets, for example, business owner and builder, and what particular issue, for example, data and functionality, is being addressed. Many proponents of the Zachman's framework see it as a cross-disciplinary, with influence extending far beyond information technology, meaning to say Zachman can be applied to other business endeavors. For example, do you know that it can be applied to baseball management? Absolutely. I was surprised when I saw it myself. Now, the Zachman framework was first proposed by John Zachman in the 1980s and represents the different viewpoints involved in an enterprise solution. The basic idea of this concept is that a complex item can be described for different purposes in different ways using different types of descriptions. The framework provides 36 categories for completely describing anything and 6 increasingly detailed views from 6 different perspectives. It can be used to organize an enterprise architectural artifacts in a way that addresses who the artifact targets and what specific issue is being addressed. These artifacts may include design documents, specifications, and models. Now, instead of depicting the process as a series of steps like other enterprise architecture frameworks, it is depicted as various viewpoints of various players by depicting the framework as a 6 by 6 matrix, with the columns depicting the communication interrogatives of what, how, where, who, when, and why. Or one may say the column, in other words, one may say the column addresses the questions of the data that is being manipulated or the data that is to be manipulated, the functions and processes, locations where business is conducted, people and organizations involved, events that trigger business activities, motivations and constraints for business behavior. Now, and the roles having the transformation sometimes called the stakeholders view. Now on the roles you have views like the planner's view, the owner's view, the designer's view, the builder's view, the subcontractor's view, and the actual system view. Now you may then ask the question, what makes this framework so unique? After all, there are other frameworks like the TOGA, the FEA framework, the DOAD. The set of cells defined turned out to house all the various modeling techniques used in the information processing industry. Now, moreover, they identify some places where some new models could be used. In addition, it also provides a good insight at how business is done and how to enhance the processes. The framework does not define a process for architecture, no. Rather, the matrix is a template that must be filled in by the processes specifically required by the organization. Now, if these processes do not exist already, the framework helps identify these gaps, kind of gap analysis you may say, in the architecture. Now, the framework enables communications among the various participants involved in developing or changing the structure. Architecture is the glue that holds the structure together. The framework defines sets of architectures that contain the development pieces of the structure. Now, I want to believe we've all seen the Zachman's grid before, and I will do my possible best in explaining what is contained in the Zachman's grid. Now, there are 36 intersecting cells in a Zachman grid, one for each meeting point between players' perspective, for example, business owner, and a descriptive focus, for example, data. As we move horizontally, for example, from left to right of the Zachman grid, in the grid, we see different descriptions of the system, all from the system's perspective, all from the same player's perspective, I'm sorry. As we move vertically in the grid, meaning from top to bottom of the grid, we see a single focus, but change the player from whose perspective we are viewing what focus. When every cell is populated with appropriate artifacts, there is a sufficient amount of detail to fully describe the system from the perspective of every player, what we might today call a stakeholder, which I already alluded to. Looking at the system from every possible angle, meaning the descriptive focus. So any enterprise can use the Zachman grid to ensure that appropriate discussions are occurring between all the important stakeholders. One suggestion of the Zachman grid is that cells in columns are related to one another. Consider, for example, the data column. That is the first column of the Zachman grid. Now, from the business owner's perspective, data is information about the business. From the database administrator's perspective, data is rows and columns in the database. While the business owner thinks about data quite differently from the database administrator, there should be some relationship between these perspectives. Somebody should be able to follow the business requirements and show that the database design is in fact being driven by those requirements. If the business has requirements that are not traceable down to the database design, we must ask if the business needs will be met by this architecture. On the other hand, if there are database design elements that do not trace back to business requirements, we might ask if we have included unnecessary design in the database level. Folks, running out of time here. Well, this is just this has been a presentation of the Zachman's framework. Until next time, regards to everybody. Thank you and God bless.